Welcome to the ATX Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Riley. The ATX Podcast is an interview show with noteworthy Austinites about their lives, their work, and their city. In this episode, I interview Richard Tagle, CEO of the Andy Roddick Foundation. During our conversation, Richard talks about immigrating to America, his career in childhood education, and the foundation's work to provide East Austin youngsters with after-school and summer programs. All right, Richard, thank you for taking time to come on the show. It's a pleasure to have you, and welcome on.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you. So I thought we would start by learning a little bit about the background of your life story. I know from what I've read a little bit about you that you're an immigrant to the U.S.
Yes.
And would love to, for those that are interested in learning kind of some of your personal background, learn that sort of initial story. What brought you here? What were kind of the circumstances that brought you to America?
Wow. Harkens me back about 35, 36 years ago. When I was 16 years old, basically left Manila to move here to the U.S. Initially moved in with my grandmother in Hawaii. What triggered that was really more of a desire for me to really be independent on my own, but there has been a lot of issues at home that had me thinking about, where do I get to author my life? It's typical teenage rebellion.
Sure.
From what my parents wanted me to be doing in my life versus the kind of future that I envisioned for myself.
Sure.
And thinking that if I had stayed in Manila, I would have taken one path in terms of career, family, and all that stuff. And if I were on my own somewhere else, I could probably carve out the path that I really wanted for myself. At that point, my father really wanted me to take up business and finance. Half of my aunts and uncles are investment bankers, so
Sure.
There was the pathway towards investment banking there. And even when I came here and didn't really know anything else in terms of orientation, the first few courses that I took in college to continue my studies here was really around finance. I really thought I was on this investment banking track.
Sure.
It was only later on that I realized I'm really not interested in it.
Yeah.
But I was really interested more in how communities work, how organizations work. I was really more curious about why certain structures are in place in our society and how do we get to change that.
Yeah.
And so right in the middle of my course, I shifted gears and shifted majors from finance to initially policy studies, but got more interested in the research side of things. So I really took up applied sociology, which is really more about social research.
I see.
And really got into it when I interned for the Conference of Mayors, who then hired me full time. Right. To really help communities across the country address some of their pressing problems. And that's basically just started my nonprofit career track.
And I know from my reading of your background, it seems like you have spent a significant amount of time working with children's issues specifically. Yes. Where does that come? Is that a direct link to your own personal background, or where's the interest come from in that regard?
Yeah, my childhood was very happy. I have fond memories of my childhood. It was my teenage years that really got me into trouble. But growing up in Manila, I was surrounded with love and care and support. Like I said, a lot of people in the family were into banking, and so they helped pave the path towards, hey, this is how your future can be created. So it was very positive.
Yeah.
And once I got into this notion of, hey, I'm helping communities look into how they can invest in structures that help disadvantaged families and underserved population, that's where I really honed in on, all children should have positive experiences. All children should have the kinds of supports that their community can offer. That's basically got me hooked and focused on really working a lot in terms of children and youth.
Gotcha.
At the Conference of Mayors, I really started with monitoring health grants to community centers to focus on health education of women, families, and children. That was the portfolio's focus. But the more I got into it, the more I really understood that, at least in the United States, the most underserved, the most disadvantaged, the population that didn't really have a voice in the policy arena were children. So that's basically where I wanted to spend my energy on.
And segueing from that point to your position now.
Yes.
So for those in Austin who are not really familiar with the Andy Roddick Foundation in any way, explain exactly what kind of the goal is of the organization and what specifically sparked your interest in joining the team.
Sure. The mission of the Andy Roddick Foundation is to really work with the community and expand opportunities for young people to learn, thrive, and succeed. Mm-hmm. We've defined that opportunity as really the time that children and youth spend outside of school.
Yep.
So we found out when the foundation transferred from Boca Raton, Florida in 2012 to Austin, one of the big tasks that we had to find out was, where's the greatest need? Mm-hmm. Where can we carve a niche, right? What can we help solve in the community? And the out-of-school time arena was something that kept popping up from families we talked to, from school district personnel that we interviewed, to other foundations that we partner with right now. Basically, we ask them what they're investing in, where are the gaps, where are the supports available, where they are not available. Yep. That's when we honed in on, there's very little going on in East Austin as far as out-of-school time supports, especially in the summer. So we honed in on the summertime and really developed and designed a summer learning program that we piloted in 2014 with 78 students. And now basically we partner with 3 elementary schools, all in East Austin, bringing summer programs, 6-week summer learning program to these schools, in addition to supporting after school activities.
During the school year.
Because one of the things that we also found out in our assessment was there's a lot of after school programs. Summer was the big gap. So we filled that in. But instead of doing our own after school, we decided, why don't we just support existing after school programs and bring them to the schools that need them the most? So now the foundation has produced incredible results and outcomes among the students that participate both in the summer and after school activities. We're looking into partnerships with other programs that are really looking into bringing high quality out of school time programs for students. So for example, we've invested in Book Spring, which is a literacy program for first and second graders. So we invested in them for the past 3 years to expand their offerings. We also partner with other foundations and pool resources together so that we can scale summer learning opportunities across the board. So that partnership is really more Central Texas focused. So we basically have programs that are funded and supported. As far as Johnson City, we have some programs, I think, in Dripping Springs, a lot of it within the city of Austin. But we've now looked at how can we really leverage what we know about high quality programming. How can we invest in other organizations that are really focused on high quality programming? And how can we influence both private funders and the public, our city leaders, our policymakers, our state legislators, to really invest in in these kinds of high quality learning supports for children.
And so, if I were a young East Austin resident or a parent of an East Austin youngster who were interested in getting involved, what's the best way for them to contact the organization or pursue potential opportunities for after-school programs or summer programs for themselves?
Right. Actually, there is an office within the Austin School District that can guide them in terms of what resources or programs that are available both in their neighborhoods, in their schools. There's also parent resource information that each school should be providing.
Yep.
But people can also look into our website, arfoundation.org, to find out more information about what we do.
Yep.
How do we find high quality? What are the investments that we have been making in the community? But a lot of this information, I think one of the things that we're working with the school district is how do you get that information out to the public? Yeah. This should be general knowledge. Families shouldn't take a lot of time or go through a complicated process to find out where can their children go to. If they need additional learning supports, if they need mentoring, if they need activities, beyond school hours. For some, it's easy. Some schools are easier to work with than others, as in any case. Some, it's still a barrier in terms of language, in terms of the kind of programming that their children need. For example, if a child or a student is interested in the arts or is interested in STEM programs or robotics, right? Specific programs you still have to look for. Right. That's not readily available. But I think the district is getting better at communicating that and making a lot of families aware of what's available, both in their schools, in their neighborhoods, and in their community.
And for the students who are admitted into the programs that are sponsored by the organization, is it fully free for them?
Yes.
Or is there any sort of payment that needs to take place from their side?
The summer learning program that we provide is free to the families, as well as the after-school activities that we support. Okay. A lot of the programs that we invest in are also free to the families.
And the summer program, is that an overnight camp, or what exactly do the students get through that program?
It's a 6-week summer learning program. It runs from Monday to Friday. Okay. I think from the middle of June to about late July. It runs from 7:30 in the morning to about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. And within those 6 weeks, they're exposed to a wide array of learning activities, from academics in reading, writing, math, STEM programs and activities. We have arts and enrichment activities, as well as sports and fitness. Yep. They learn 5 different sports within those 6 weeks. We get a lot of partners. For example, Austin Blacks is a great partner of ours who teach our students how to play rugby. Okay. And then we have a lot of organizations and private sector businesses who come in and volunteer their time to teach our students. Anything from robotics to how to play tennis, or even I think this last summer we had racquetball and cricket. Yeah. As an offering. Okay. Yeah.
And what's the age range that would qualify for someone to get involved in a summer program like that?
It's we focus on elementary. Okay. So rising first graders to rising sixth graders. The students who attend those 3 schools that we partner with. Yeah.
And to your prior comment a bit earlier, is the issue really getting the message out so that local residents know this is available to them, or is it still an issue of limited finances where there's too much demand and your team is working on how to supply the services that are being demanded?
Yeah, that's a great question, because throughout the state of Texas, there's still 1.5 million children who are waiting to sign up in a program if it were available in their community. So from the get-go, access to available programs is a problem. Then we've been talking about how do we close that demand gap, because there's a lot of after-school programs throughout the state. There's a lot of after-school programs throughout the city. How can we make these programs both accessible, affordable, and available to the students that need them.
Yep.
Affordability is a big issue, especially for underserved families. The average cost of a summer program, for example, runs between $300 and $400 on average on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't afford that.
Sure.
But a lot of high quality programs are expensive, and very few are available for free.
Yeah.
So it also creates some kind of an equity gap that a lot of more affluent families within Austin can afford to partake and avail of high quality programs, whereas the families that need them the most, especially those residing in low income neighborhoods, have limited options. So that's the kind of dilemma that we're trying to solve.
Sure. And for the students and families that are interested and do want to get involved in these programs, is there a formal application process that gets vetted by your team and then a certain percentage is admitted? How does that process work?
It's open to, again, the students who attend the schools that we partner with. And within those schools, basically, we do promote the program across the board, across all the families of students attending those schools. We have about, half of the students attending the schools are interested in participating. We do have limited capacity in terms of how many students we can serve in a given period. But for the most part, a lot of people or a lot of families who want to participate in the program get to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And as you look into the future, the next 3 to 5 years, what success look like from your perspective? I mean, if you could paint the picture you would like to paint, what does that look like in terms of the success for the foundation?
We are actually going through a planning process right now to look at the next 3 years of the foundation's work, and we're talking about both scaling the impact of high quality programs, not just in Austin, but throughout the region.
Yep.
We're looking at how can we help scale high quality programs that are reaching the students that need them the most, either through partnerships, either through investments. We're also looking into expanding even our own programs, serving more students in those partner schools, and identifying other summer programs that can really expand their reach. Yeah. But we're also trying to get the community to be more aware of why is there a need for these kinds of programs? Why is there a need to look at learning supports that children need access to beyond school? What's the community's role in making sure that children are learning beyond school? When you look at the time, the waking time that children have, basically less than 20% of their waking time are actually spent in school. When you think about weekends, when you think about holiday, you think about the summer. Yep. Given a year's schedule, 20% of that time is actually spent in school. The other 80% is actually spent in the community, in the neighborhoods. With other folks, in libraries, in museums, in amusement parks, in community centers. Yeah. And all of these places that are community-based can play a role in enhancing that learning experience, right? And we want the community and the public in general to really understand what's the value of those learning experiences. How do they create the kind of character and citizenship and the social emotional learning side of things? What does that say to a child growing up in Austin if they look back in their childhood and say, hey, I had access to a community center, I had access to mentors, I had access to role models that I can talk to. In addition to that, I had great schools, right? That I was attending schools that really taught me these skills. And then outside of the school, in the community, everywhere I looked, basically they were looking out after my well-being. That's the kind of vision that we have for Austin, that as children grow up, they look at it as a community that had their back.
Yeah, yeah. And the genesis for the interest from Andy's side, where did that come from? What is a former professional tennis player doing, getting involved in children's education and after school programs?
It's a very interesting story because Andy himself would tell you that he wasn't really a stellar student. Yeah. He would often tell the staff, at best he was a C+. Yeah. Average student. He wouldn't raise his hand in the classroom. He wouldn't be the one to be engaged in a discussion inside the classroom. But when he held a tennis racket at age 9 in an after-school program, that's when the passion was sparked. This kind of, hey, I discovered what I'm good at. I discovered an interest that I can pursue. I discovered a talent, an inherent talent that I had, and ran with it, basically. And so this notion of if he didn't have that opportunity, if his parents didn't sign him up to a tennis camp in the after school, he probably wouldn't have discovered that he was superb at it, and that's what he wants to bring to young people now. Yeah. That he's able to do that, that he can use his voice to promote these kinds of opportunities, and. When I first came on board, and Andy and I had a conversation about this, I said, do you want tennis to be a big component of this? He goes, well, tennis was a big thing for me, but I don't know if that's going to be the big thing for the kid around the corner.
Sure.
So he was really clear about, well, I want to provide all sorts of opportunities, a wide array of learning opportunities. So I want to see arts. I want to see STEM. I want to see reading. I want to see, and of course, sports and fitness is going to be part of it. But he says, let's expose these kids to all these different things, and hopefully, one area or one subject matter or one experience would spark passion and curiosity in all of them,
and see what sticks.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I think you've been doing this now with the Roddick Foundation for 5 or 6 years.
6.5.
6.5 years. Yep. So in that time, you were mentioning the story about Andy at age 9. What's your favorite story or a favorite story of a student from the 6+ years you've been doing this that really resonates with you still?
There's so many. When I have time, I would volunteer at our summer program, and there would be times when kids I work with would often ask me about what I do. Yeah. So I get to tell them about what I do, and I get to tell them about what a CEO does, or that I report to a board of directors. Sure. They say, well, who's your boss? Is Andy Roddick your boss? Well, he's one of my bosses. I have 12, right? Yeah. You have 12 bosses. No wonder they're bored, right? But there's also another time when, so during those 6 weeks, we exposed them to different things. So there was one week, we had a chef from Hilton come, and was it a sushi class, Brian? So the chef basically taught them how to make sushi. So one of the students basically asked me, "Hey, can you really make money out of cooking? Because I think I want to be a chef." Yeah, lots of chefs make good money. The following week, we helped them build solar powered cars, and so he said, "Oh, maybe I want to be an engineer and design cars." Mm-hmm. The third week, we had the Architects in America, the Austin office of Architects in America, come and help them build these structures that we call Wonders of the World. Where the whole gymnasium was laid out in a map of the world, and they had to create like a structure like the Taj Mahal or the Great Wall of China, and then they have to place those somewhere on the map to know their geography. And the same student says, "Oh, maybe I want to become an architect," right? So by the end of the 6 weeks, there was like 6 jobs that he wanted to have, and originally. He wanted also to become a football player who's also a businessman. And he says, "Oh, Mr. Richard, can I have 6 jobs? Can I do all of these things?" I said, you can do whatever you want. It just means that you have to you got to have 6 majors in college, and that might be an expensive endeavor. But everything was like just a new discovery for him, which I love, because it was like, if he wasn't in this program, he probably would have thought that the future was very limited. But that experience and that kind of example really solidified for me, like, the horizon is for all children to see and have them carve what that future looks like.
Yeah. And, to the 5-year goals or the scaling goals that you were mentioning earlier, I imagine some of that is just systems and principles you want to put in place, but some of it must be financial to some degree. You were mentioning partnerships earlier. What for Austin corporations or companies that are interested, from your perspective, what is the ideal situation or relationship with a local company or a corporation that could really help the program? What would that look like from your perspective?
That's a great question, because we do love those partnerships with local companies and corporations, because they could run the gamut of having their employees volunteer in the program, having the students come and visit their workplace and find out more about what's it like to be, for example, a financial consultant at PwC, or what's it like to be a software designer, for WP Engine, or for shipping software programs at UShip, which is a great partner of ours. Students come to their offices, see their what's a typical day for them. They get to also sponsor activities. So they get to sponsor Spring Break, the Spring Break camp, which is a 3-day 2-night. That's an overnighter that we have with 4th and 5th graders. They can sponsor that. They can sponsor a lot of our events. We have a gala coming up, which is our major fundraiser. We have a lot of companies sponsoring that event. We're also looking into kind of innovations. We've been thinking, just yesterday we were talking about how to deepen relationships with families and the kinds of supports families need to have in order to become better advocates for their children's education. So we'll be looking at opportunities for companies to sponsor family engagement activities throughout the year. So lots of opportunities for companies to work with us in that regard.
Gotcha. And I know before we started recording, I was mentioning that I went to the fundraiser last year with Roger Federer, and I know the gala is coming up in a couple months. Are those the two primary breadwinning events every year, a celebrity appearance in the gala, or are there other opportunities that also really financially help the foundation?
Yeah,
overall?
we have 2 events a year that really both bring in the funding that we need, and also the kind of donor base that we can mobilize. So we have a spring event, our Brunchin event, that's really lighter in terms of content. That's where we have people come over, have brunch with us. They get to meet the families that we're serving, the students that participate in the program. And then we have the gala, which is really more high end. We raise about $1 million from that event. We have a concert artists every year, which is basically the main kind of feature of the gala. We have Seal coming this November, so we're excited about that. We also have a major donor circle called 40 Love, where every donor contributes about $40,000 a year for 3 years, and that really supports the operations of the foundation. So beyond that, all other proceeds, all other donations that's forwarded to us goes directly to the programs. We also have an Operating Matters Circle, which is another donor circle, which is also a 3-year commitment of $1,500 and above a year. And then we also have other fundraising arms called the Leadership Council. Is a growing kind of network of young professionals. We formed that back in 2014 because we were new. We were 12 years old back then, but a lot of the base was in Florida. So when Andy retired, decided to move back to Austin, where he grew up, and decided to bring the foundation with him. So we were the new kid in town. Nobody knew us. A lot of people knew who Andy Roddick was, but didn't know that he had a foundation. So we formed this leadership council to really spread the word. And these were young professionals who would network as part of their work or would always be in the social circles. Yeah. We started out with, I think, about a dozen or so of them. Now that has grown to about 42 people.
Okay.
That has really become our great ambassadors of spreading the word about the foundation.
Yeah. And is East Austin for the foreseeable future, will that be the primary focus of the organization or not necessarily?
Right now we're focused on East Austin because this is where the need is.
Yeah.
But we know down the road with demographic transitions and what's happening with Austin in general, that a lot of low-income families are moving out of the jurisdiction, which is an issue that we really want to address. But as far as we're concerned, we go where the need is.
Yep.
There will always be a need here in Austin, but we're also looking at part of our planning process is we're also looking at where else can we make a difference and how else can we make a difference with the families that we're serving.
Long term, is there for the foundation itself, is there another organization or another foundation that this organization is trying to emulate? That's sort of a model, the gold standard from your perspective, or is this sort of, you're starting from your own identity and want to kind of create itself as time goes on?
We're actually in a very unique position. In fact, the opposite is happening. A lot of foundations are starting to contact us about how do we structure our work. The reason why we're unique is we're both a philanthropic we're a philanthropic agency. Yeah. We share the resources that we raise, but at the same time we also run our own programs. Yeah. And at the same time we also have public awareness role that where we're making the public aware of what the needs are and what are the strategies needed to address those needs. So we're an advocate, we're a funder, we're a program provider. Right. Very few organizations in the nonprofit sector play all of those three roles. You're either just a program provider, you're just a funder, or you're just an advocacy organizations. We're playing those three roles.
Yeah, some chutzpah there.
It's so it's even with me and the rest of the team, we're also talking about how do we balance this? Yeah. Where is the biggest investment in as far as our structure and capacity? Do we expand our direct programming, or do we expand the kind of investments we make to other organizations and partners? But the number one rule that we have is we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. Yeah. We should invest in organizations that know their work, know their space, and does their work very well. The same way that we decided when summer learning was the biggest gap here in East Austin, that we decided if nobody else is playing that, then let's start one. Yep. Right. And the same way that when we look at the after-school landscape, we saw a lot of organizations that do that very well. So we might as well just invest in them as opposed to duplicating efforts. On the advocacy component, we're really the flag bearers and the first one to say that high-quality programming is essential. Yeah. That's what all children need, regardless of status or race or creed or class. That high quality programming is what makes the difference. Yep. The availability of high quality programming, the affordability of it, the accessibility of it. That's what we're trying to get the public to be aware of. Mm-hmm. That this does merit public investment and support and demand for. So when we look at all of these things that need to be done, we're looking at what's the space for us to really have a niche around. So we are looking at all those questions of, should we expand our direct programs? Where else can we invest? Yeah. And how much of a voice do we need to have, and how loud should that voice be? Sure. Because there are other organizations throughout the state and within Austin that advocate for children and youth, and we want to be able to tap into that. Yeah.
Last question about the foundation. Then I want to ask you some Austin-based questions. Okay. And life questions. you touched on this a little bit earlier, but if someone listening to this knows someone who lives in East Austin and could really use an after school program like this, or I'm a student and I happen to hear this, what the best way for them to get involved is that to go directly to the website? Is it to email somebody within the organization? What does that look like from?
The first step is go to our website, find out as much information as you need or want. And if it's not on our website, the answers to the questions that you have, you can send us an email, inquiry at arfoundation.org, or send an email to Brian Stephens, our Chief Communications Officer, at brian@arfoundation.org.
Okay.
And from there, we could actually, if we don't have the answer, we can refer you to somebody who does.
Okay. And the website URL is arfoundation.org.
That's right.
Okay. So to Austin itself, you've been here a long time.
6.5 years.
Longer than a lot of people who have moved here recently, myself included. One question when I moved here that I wanted to learn from everyone is what is the hidden gem in Austin that you frequent, a bar, a hotel cocktail area, something that you know about that doesn't seem to have reached the masses yet that you would recommend to your close friends and family to check out in town?
Oh my God. It's 54 years old. My bar days have long been gone.
Sure.
But there's a lot of fun neighborhoods, fun places to visit in Austin. I'm a foodie, so I try out new restaurants all the time.
Yeah.
We have, Franklin's, as everybody knows, for best barbecue. We go to Quack's a lot for their cookies and sweets. Although my doctor told me that I should limit my sweets from here on. But there's a lot, Uchi is something is a Japanese place that we
very popular
often go to. Yes, and you need to make reservations early on.
Yep.
But also your usual Torchy's Tacos.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good, inexpensive places around here. I've actually lived in Washington D.C. for 25 years before moving here, and within the first 6 months of moving to Austin, I've gained 15 pounds that I never lost. So I went from 185 to close to 200 pounds, and I've hovered around that weight for 6.5 years.
Right.
So
Okay. How about, generally your favorite thing about Austin and also as the city grows exponentially, as it seems to be in time, one thing that you hope the city retains as it becomes more of a major American powerhouse and major city?
I'm actually surprised because when the opportunity to move to Austin came, I was, to be honest, hesitant.
Yeah.
After 25 years in Washington, D.C., which is a very global, diverse place, a political kind of power center for the world, I said, why would I want to leave here? Why would I want to leave D.C. for Texas, which I heard was very conservative, Republican, but within my first 6 months in Austin, I was pleasantly surprised at how open-minded people are here, how casual people are here, and how global actually the perspective is. There's actually diversity in terms of a deeper understanding of what's happening around the world. Something that I never expected any city to have outside of Washington, D.C.
Sure,
Maybe New York or San Francisco, yes. But I was really surprised that Austin has that kind of global perspective and really Austinites knew what was happening everywhere else. I would hope that we would retain that because I think as we grow and develop, one of the things that I love about this place is that we're aware of what's going on. We're aware of what's going on in our community, and we're very passionate about it. School board meetings, city council meetings are always crowded. There's always forums going on in terms of how do we solve gentrification? How do we solve, how do we address racial equity, and how do we diversify and ensure that opportunities that a tech-based city or a growing, developing city is open to everyone and benefits everyone. So these kinds of conversations, I lived in DC for 25 years, and those conversations have been in pockets or isolated within several sectors. I find that in Austin, you can actually talk to anyone, whether it's East or West, or whether it's somebody in the tech industry or in the nonprofit sector, that we're really concerned about the same issues.
Yeah. Some life questions I wanted to ask you. So I know you were mentioning what sounds like a happy childhood, but a childhood that landed you in America in your teenage years.
Yep.
If you had one, who was your childhood hero and why?
My father, which is an obvious answer, but my father and I didn't get along very well, especially in my between the ages of 11 and 16. But I saw him as a very hardworking man. I witnessed how he grew from being an employee of this Japanese firm that set up in the Philippines to actually buying that firm.
Wow.
To actually setting up his own kind of company. I saw that as a kid. I would visit him in his office, and he would be bowing and reporting to his Japanese bosses, to the point wherein he was actually negotiating the acquisition of the assets of the company during the Marcos era, when the economy was tanking and Marcos was being kicked out and all that stuff. The firm actually decided to leave the country and tasked my father with liquidating the assets of the company. And so he decided to, hey, this is my chance. Let me acquire it and buy the rights to the market share of the company. And he did that. And so I saw in him this kind of tenacity and perseverance and focus about what he wanted to do. And I followed that. But at the same time, growing up, he was also had the tenacity and perseverance and focus to tell me, like, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to take up in college. This is where you're going to go to school. To the point wherein, I thought you're sending me to the best schools and give me a best education so I can decide for myself what is best for me. So why would I need to go through all that if all I'm going to do is what you want me to do?
Sure.
So that's when the kind of conflict arose. But looking back and having a conversation with him now, he basically told me back in my mid-30s when we reconciled that he also admired my perseverance and tenacity and focus of you really wanted to live your own life. Nobody was going to stop you. You were really going to do what you wanted to do. And those two traits, I think we share, and the bond that created between the two of us. So in fact, he is my role model, and he saw in me basically the same kind of tenacity that he had in himself.
I love it. I love it. What advice would you give? I think you were 16 or 17 when you came to the U.S., something like that. So you can take this question at that time or slightly later. What advice would you give yourself at 16 or roughly at that transition point, looking back on your life now, that you wish you would have had, or maybe it was advice you were already following that really helped you?
I didn't really know what I was doing at 16. I just wanted to I just wanted to be on my own and not follow anybody's rules. But if I meet me when I was 16 today, I would really look at, understand where your parents are coming from, understand where your father is coming from, because they only have your best interest at heart. You may want to pave your own path, but there are certain there are certain landmarks that all of us need to go through, right? We can't go from 16 to 54 and suddenly wake up and be the CEO of our own organization.
Right.
That doesn't usually happen.
Sure.
But there are certain points in life wherein older or more elder people can actually guide you on.
Yeah.
Life experiences are not necessarily happening for the first time.
Yeah.
It's happening for the first time to you.
Yes.
But it's not the first time for humankind to experience that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm always reminding whenever I get to speak in front of college students or high school students, I know I've been there in your shoes, wherein you're just eager to start your life. You're eager to fulfill your dreams and wishes. But there are people who are 20 years older who exactly, when they were at that point in your life, were feeling the same thing, and they had to go through certain experience. We all have to experience heartbreak, right? We all have to experience disappointment and loss, and we don't go through life, skipping and hopping and happy every day.
Yeah.
So how do you cope? How do you cope when plans don't materialize?
Yeah.
How do you cope when dreams don't get fulfilled? Because don't necessarily define you. You define you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. Similarly to that last question, what is a strong belief that you hold that other people tend to think is crazy or disagree with?
Oh man. I don't know if they disagree, but I whenever I speak at conferences and people ask me about leadership, I never saw leadership as being on the top or having the best ideas.
Yeah.
To me, leadership is really you're really at the bottom, holding either the ladder steady for other people to be able to climb up, or steering the ship, so that it maneuvers through rocky waters. You're not the first in the room. You're always the last. You're not the first to be served. You're always, if there's leftovers, you get to have some as well. But to me, leadership is your team gets served first, and your team looks at you not for simply direction of where to go, but to really make sure that the path that all of you are taking is a solid path, that you're not steering them inside of unknown territory. So to me, it's really the whoever holds the ladder at the bottom to keep it steady as people climb up. That to me
That's leadership.
That's leadership.
Yeah, love it. How about in life generally? In the last few years, what is a purchase of $100 or less that has most positively impacted your life, or that you've most enjoyed and would recommend to others?
Man. What's so ironic is now that I can afford it, I don't buy it. I used to buy, even in my early 20s, like very expensive jeans.
Yeah.
Like $180.
Yeah.
7 for Mankind, or
Sure.
what is that other? There were like, I was into like these expensive jeans that I would buy.
Yeah.
Now you look into my closet, it's really like 6 pairs of Old Navy jeans.
Yeah.
And the last pair I bought was really like, I think $18.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. A few more questions, and then we can wrap this up. In terms of where you are right now, you've hopefully got many, many years left to do amazing things. You've had an amazing life. You've come to the U.S. You're the CEO of this foundation now. What at present would you say is the greatest accomplishment of your life so far?
Oh, shoot. The work I'm doing. I'm always really thankful. Every morning that I wake up, I'm looking forward to working and working in this community and working with the team that we have here at the foundation. We have, I think, the smartest collection of people looking into children and youth programs for the city. I think, to me, everything else in my past career basically led me to this work.
Right.
Every single job that I have contributed to the way I think about
Yep.
and the work that we do. So to me, this current work so far has been the most fulfilling.
Okay. You were mentioning earlier your childhood hero, your father. I'm curious, who in your experience is the wisest person you've ever met, and why?
My husband. He's also a children's advocate. He worked for UNICEF. He worked for a nonprofit here in Austin that provided free surgery for children under 14 with
Wow.
Congenital heart defect. And he's now consulting with a number of nonprofits with a focus on international work. He's on the board of the Haiti Cardiac Alliance. He's the reason why I tell people he's one of the, not necessarily the smartest, but the wisest. Mm-hmm. You think my background is impressive. I mean, my husband was left by his family because he was gay. I mean, at
is he
age,
American?
He's American.
Yeah.
Grew up in Illinois. Came out as gay to his family, and basically his family left him on his own at age 15. And so he had to tend on his own, but managed to complete high school, got a scholarship at SMU, got to work for a global corporation, an employment agency that's operated around the world, where he got to travel around the world and training people around employment practices, to the point wherein he also worked for Human Rights Campaign in Washington, D.C. And for 14 years was U.S. Fund for UNICEF's Director for National and Strategic Partnerships. So to me, to go from being abandoned by your family at 15 to getting a scholarship at SMU to flying around the world, that takes guts. That takes, strategy on your part. And I've always asked him, like, who mentored you? Who basically guided you? And when we first met, I never really knew his background until later on, when we really started dating and into where we've been together for 20 years now.
Wow.
But he doesn't really have like a set of mentors, but basically what he's done is really taken experiences in his life and really created a clear jigsaw puzzle of what he wants his future to be. I never knew what my future was going to look like at age 16, and I never really created a pathway for my career to, I'm going to work here and then here and then here. He, on the other hand, had a very strategic view of what he wanted to do and where he wanted to be. So I consider that to be very wise.
Amazing. Last question I want to ask you. I think you in this role, you've done many, many public appearances, probably done many, many interviews. What is a question that you have never been asked that you wish you would have been asked so that you could answer it?
Wow. A question that I wish people asked me. I wish people asked me why nonprofit work.
Yeah.
Because I could be doing this for a city agency, a public agency, or I could be running a corporate giving program.
Yep.
I could have pursued investment banking and maybe sat on nonprofit boards, right? That would be the question that I want people to ask me. Why nonprofit work?
And how would you answer that?
I always ask myself that.
Yeah.
I know I love doing this work, but sometimes I struggle with answering that question, because I think people have this notion of nonprofit work as not a business.
Yeah.
And to me, this is a business. We need to have, financial acumen. We need strategy. We need HR policies. We need all of these things that you need to run an investment bank. You need to be, you need clear communications to get those clients to invest in the bank. We need clear communications to be able to reach out to our families. We need clear communications to get to a donor base, to get them to understand and be passionate about our mission. It is a business.
Yep.
It needs to be professionally run. We're not just running this from the goodness of our hearts, but also from the smarts of our brains.
Sure.
But when you put those two together, when you put heart and mind together, it's a powerful force. Yeah. And so I think that's why, I want people to understand that's what nonprofit work is. It's the combination of business acumen and passion for mission, and the kind of work that is measured not in terms of financial profits, but in change in community.
Yeah. I wish you the best of luck. This was terrific. Thank you so much, Richard.
Terrific. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the ATX Podcast. For more information, follow the show on social media. Its handle is the ATX Podcast, and on the show's website, theatxpodcast.com.